senso religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale, non è un'idea, innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire, non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli.
Buonasera a tutti, benvenuti.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I would like to thank all of you who are here at the Dal Verme Theatre in Milan and all the people who are connected online from Italy and abroad. I know from our friends who have gathered in many venues where the live streams have been organized that several personalities from the church and the civil society are participating in this meeting, as well as many people who do not belong to the movement of communion and liberation. So thank you very much for attending this meeting, and I hope that tonight's meeting can become an opportunity to get to know each other better. We have heard Father Giussani introducing the theme of the religious sense in this way. It is not only a fact, an event, but the most impressive and most ineradicable event in human history. This clip, this audio is taken from the podcast produced by Cora Media and available online that covers all the contents of the book The Religious Sense for the first time from the actual voice of Father Giussani. So even in this excerpt we have listened to, though brief, we can grasp very well the intensity with which Father Giussani introduced to young people, but to all people actually, the theme of the religious sense, his vibrant passion with which he invited everyone to take our humanity seriously, that desire for a meaning, that tension towards the infinite that each one of us experiences and finds himself or herself in. This is what it is all about. On the other hand, I would like to recall a very popular quote of his. We suffocate the young if we demand from them an enthusiasm for limited things. He was very passionate about the education of young people, so for Father Giussani, any proposal that did not aim at opening the gates, at introducing an experience of total meaning for existence was limited. As many of you know, Father Giussani completed the contents of those lectures, the ones he held at the Berchet High School and then at the Università Cattolica, in the 1986 edition of The Religious Sense. the most popular one among Father Giussani's books and his most translated book. So there's a new edition of this book edited by Boer, and I would like to thank the Rizzoli and Mondadori Group for their fruitful collaboration that has been going on for many years with our publishing and editorial initiatives. So thank you very much. So we have decided to publish this new edition because the Communion and Liberation community in Italy and in the whole world will start once again working on this book during the meetings of our schools of community. So I would like to talk about this, about School of Community, just to explain what it is to all the people who are gathered here. So going back to the book, this new edition has a new preface, a new foreword written in 1998 by the then Archbishop of Buenos Aires, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, during a presentation encounter of the religious sense in Spanish. So once again, thank you very much to the Holy Father for his consent to publish this new edition with his foreword. The relevance of the Pope's words is truly striking. He said, "The religious sense is not only a book exclusively for members of the movement, nor is it only for Christians or believers. It is a book for all people who take their humanity seriously. I dare say that today the primary question we must face is not so much the problem of God, the existence of God, the knowledge of God, but the problem of the human, of human knowledge and finding in humans themselves the mark that God has made, so as to be able to meet him." So even after reading this text by Pope Francis, we decided to organize tonight's event, a public presentation of the book open to everyone, that it is a very topical and fascinating provocation to today's man. And we invited Father Javier Prades, the rector of the Ecclesiastical University San Damaso in Madrid and full professor of dogmatic theology. So thank you very much for being here. We invited him here tonight. Thank you very much. And I would also like to thank the journalist Irene Elisei, who will kindly lead tonight's dialogue. Thank you very much. You have the floor. Good evening. Thank you very much to Davide Prosperi, President of the Fraternity of Communion and Liberation. An objective criterion, an elementary experience which mothers in the same way provide to their children. The need for goodness, justice, truth, and happiness constitutes man's ultimate identity, the profound energy with which men of all ages and races approach everything. And we are stirred as we read passages, words written thousands of years ago by ancient poets, and we sense that their work applied to the present in a way that our day-to-day relations do not. Why is this possible? Because this elementary experience, as we stated, is substantially the same in everyone, even if it will then be determined, translated, and realized in very different ways, so different, in fact, that they may seem opposed. So I started from these few lines written in the first pages of The Religious Sense, although they may not be the most popular ones or the most quoted ones, so that we can all start from the same point. They remind us of something we have all experienced, maybe during our high school years, when we were struck by a title, a book's title, a poem, a piece of classical music, a song. And this is why Giussani's work is full of quotes, and he often quotes the author, the poem Giacomo Leopardi. I was struck, as I think all of us, by a poem Giacomo Leopardi wrote almost 200 years ago, the night song of a wandering shepherd in Asia. The shepherd wanders, and Giussani quotes these lines, and when I gaze upon the stars at night, in thought I ask myself, why all these torches bright? What mean these depths of air, this vast, this silent sky, this nightly solitude, and what am I? So these are the existential questions, the meaning of the book, The Religious Sense. We have just heard Father Giussani talking about the religious sense as a fact, whereas many times it is talked about as a matter of sensitivity. If I am sensitive, then I ask certain questions, but it is not like this. So I would like, first of all, to ask, what does Father Giussani mean with the word fact when he refers to the religious sense? Good evening, Irene, and good evening to all of you. I would like to thank Davide Prosperi for inviting me to come here to talk about this exceptional book written by Father Giussani. So as we've just heard, it is an actual fact, a reality, not an idea, not some kind of feeling of emotion, the most imposing event in human history. We'll find the full answer as we read the book together, but we can immediately go back to another excerpt by Father Giussani. He says, we call religious sense the heart of man, the thirst for truth and happiness that turns to the ultimate good, to the total meaning, which exceeds our ability of imagination and definition, and that nonetheless is the reason for all actions. The religious sense is the peak of reason, because reason means being aware of reality according to the totality of its factors. So let's focus on these words: truth for truth, thirst for truth, thirst for happiness, total meaning. Total meaning that is the reason for all my actions, and that reminds us the definition of reason as being aware of reality according to the totality of its factors. Thirst for truth and for happiness that I cannot imagine, I cannot define, and that nonetheless moves and steers all my actions. So this is Giussani's main focus, and then he adds, so the religious sense is an awareness that holds an exact position and the attitude towards our destiny that we should all strive for. This is an imposing fact. It is an awareness and an attitude that we strive for, and it contains all of our humanity, the humanity of us as individuals and also of peoples, of societies. And this is why it is an imposing reality. So I have another question, a very simple question, but essential. Why is it useful to talk about the religious sense today? We are always very busy. It seems like something we can postpone. Why should we suggest reading this book today, a book focusing on questions, whereas the world around us actually focuses on finding answers? Well, what is today's context, today's environment? Well, I would like to use a statement, a quote by Pope Francis. He says, we are going through a change of epoch. if we want to take this seriously, then we should all be aware that we are experiencing very deep changes in our society, defined also as an anthropological revolution by many authors. So the scope of these changes are deeply related to what human identity is. So we could describe many phenomena related to this. It would be a more cultural discussion, but in a few words, we can name the NBIC convergence, the combination of nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technology, and cognitive science, with a significant consequence on the development of genetic research. There is also another side to this change of epoch, a human change, the self-affirmation of individuals, self-determination of individuals. It is more about feelings, emotions. Let us think about the narcissism of our societies. This would be a whole other field, but to sum up, I could quote Pope Benedict XVI, who talked about an imbalance between technical possibilities that are huge. So an imbalance between what he called technical possibilities and moral energy. And he said, the security we need as a precondition of our freedom and our dignity cannot come in the last analysis from technical systems of control. Systems will not give us this security, but can specifically spring only from man's moral strength. Whenever the latter is lacking or insufficient, the power man has will be transformed increasingly into a power of destruction. So what he defines as moral energy is related to what Father Giussani says when he uses words that are better known by many of us, the loss of the sense of I. When we lose this moral energy, as Pope Benedict says, this living component of our humanity that can be suppressed by the power. Father Giussani says, many are confused about the word I, but I have to be interested in the meaning of my I, because it is the root of all my actions. If I neglect it, then my relationship with the world, with life, cannot actually be mine. I cannot have a life, friends. I cannot really know music or anything. None of this can actually be mine. So the surrounding world would like to prevent us from knowing all of these things. And if my I is suppressed, then we become subject to our everyday reality. We suffer. But Father Giussani wants to wake us up, to become aware of this, to understand that nothing of what you say, of what you propose, of what you suggest can actually be yours if you are not fully aware of the meaning of your I. So this would be enough to be grateful to Father Giussani, but I would like to add something. When in his foreword, Bergoglio says something very important when he says, so if you do not pay attention to reality, then when someone speaks to you about God, it may sound as something abstract, may sound as if God can have no impact on your life. But actually, delving into your humanity can help you reopen your question about God. Otherwise, you will fall again into the logic of human power against human power. So let us accept this invitation to retrieve the authenticity, the simplicity of our human nature, of our human condition. We do need someone who gives us back the fascination of what it means to be human. So you mentioned this invitation to be human. The religious sense is definitely Father Giussani's most popular and translated book, and it is the first book of a trilogy, of a journey that Father Giussani started with his high school students, very young people that were Christians but had a more of a traditional faith. Then to this book he added 2 more books to complete the trilogy, and here comes my question. So these young people had a very traditional faith. To make them understand that it was worth it to believe in God, he started from their very first questions. And this is what is peculiar about Father Giussani. I've never met Father Giussani, but I do understand that this question poses to us a question again and again. But now I wonder, can a man of our times, a modern man, ask himself these questions once again? A few years later, Father Giussani wrote a foreword for the following editions of the book. And at the very beginning, he explains what he aims at doing. He says that in order to face reality, the reality people in the past were facing, but also our reality, to understand something about life, human beings use reason. And this is already a very strong proposal, because there are many proposals in the world about how to face reality. For example, sometimes we can follow our instinct, we can be unreasonable. There are many ways to face reality, but Father Giussani says, reason is what makes us human. Therefore, we must have a passion for reasonableness, and this passion is the thread that will lead us through this discussion. For this reason, the first volume of the trilogy, The Religious Sense, opens with a threefold methodological premise to help us to grasp the way the human conscience by nature reasons. And it's very interesting for me to see how original Father Giussani was. Very original traits of his educational proposal to make us understand the totality of reality. At the same time, he followed the Christian tradition from St. Augustine to St. Thomas to Newman.
Non si sia posta la questione sulla ragione e non abbia lottato in favore, a favore della ragione.
He followed them to try and understand reality through reason. They had done the same thing. So his approach to reality as a way to become educated about our world. So the journey proposed by Father Giussani can also stem from something Ratzinger had already noticed in the 70s, something he had said in one of his books. Ratzinger wrote, why is faith failing at being conveyed from one generation to another? He tried to answer that there had been Christian answers to this question, but they were not closely connected to reality. And he talked about Germany of the 70s. So what he was saying was the answers Christianity was giving could be right, but they were not linked to reality. So the fact that these questions neglected this passion for life, our humanity, may have been one of the reasons why sometimes we face reality, but we don't really know what we're doing. So Giussani says, well, I'll go back to the premises. The first premise is realism, then reasonableness, and the third, impact of morality. So let us start our search with these premises. What kind of research do we want to start? The object decides the method. The subject decides the method. The subject is the person. Me, you, all of us. So what is the most realistic way to understand who the person is, who I am? As Leopardi says, so this is how he was already answering Ratzinger's question in Italy in the 50s, a question that then Ratzinger posed in the 70s in Germany. We can give right answers that come from the mystery and that contain a living dialogue with ourselves and with the other. And this is what enables us to actually understand what is being proposed to us, something that has to do with me, with my reality. And Ratzinger said, well, what can we do? We have failed at this. What are the next steps? What was lacking? Well, let's start with the Mitfragen. Let us ask these questions with the people. Let us use the questions as a way to become open to reason, to what reason cannot fully imagine or define. So this may seem probably one of the most original traits in Giussani's proposal.
It seems to me that for this reason, Don Giussani focuses on the concept of experience and dialogue. The risk is actually of not being able to encounter yourself. The point is that, for example, I might feel like I'm telling someone the truth. The other person doesn't recognize it, but there is no I don't feel involved in my human experience. And this takes credit away from the announcement. It makes it less credible, the announcement that Don Giussani gave to us. The hypothesis that he gave to us, that he entrusted to us, is an open door. We need to go through the door, but the door is open. Sometimes people slam the door in your face. This can happen all the time. But the more you start again and you begin again and take up that journey with the other person, the other will resemble something of yourself, will remind you of who you are. Is it a good idea to dedicate time to this book in order to dedicate time to yourself? They coincide. And I think this has to do with the question of awareness. To be aware of this experience means to really experience it and not feel it as theoretical. During the Easter holidays, at my parents' house, my parents were listening to classical music, and I realized that I hadn't recognized certain notes in such a way before that experience, and I was moved. This is similar to the experience that we have. When we talk about experience every day, to understand the profundity, the depth of that experience, what do we need to do? We need to understand the depth of the Christian and human position that Don Giussani had in terms of experience. He knew how much this category, we could say, this concept of experience had been reduced and treated in a superficial way. So he was very serious about this point. And he realized that everything was at stake, not only himself, but everybody's experience. So he posed the question of what it means to experience, to make an experience, to experience things. We cannot call anything experience in a human and complete way if it is not compared with the original criteria that constitute the human heart and the verification of these evidences that constitute the human heart, that constitute experience. Experience and reason enable us to go through everything. And I think this is the hundredfold. You understand that you grow not in a particular small sector of life, but it has to do with the central point of life, the meaning of existence. I realize that I grow through time in the meaning of my experience. This is what the hundredfold is, here and now. Passion for reasonableness is not a programmed exercise. It is fundamental for us, but nobody can plan it. But this intelligence of reality may be acquired in a comparison, in a dialogue with reality. For example, I could write on a blackboard, "Mothers love children. A child is loved by his mother." If there was a child in the audience, these sentences that are indestructible, they're true and real, but if the child does not feel embraced by these sentences, he wouldn't understand it. Whereas if he experiences the actual embrace of his mother, he is able to express this concept even without doing it verbally, because he understands it, because he experienced it. This has to do with the criteria that constitute the human heart. Giussani says, every one of us has been given these criteria. They've been given to us in our experience as part of our human condition. They are criteria that emerge from within the inherent structure of the human being. I want to dwell on a moment on this dimension of criteria. They are objective, and they are the same for everyone. They are within us, but they are given, they are imminent to our structure. This, however, is not true because I say so, or Father Giussani says so. You have to experience this, just like the child needs to experience his mother's embrace. I can try and say where I see it. So, while I was reading a contemporary Spanish author, I came across two verses of a poem. Madrid Metro Night. Exhausted people with their eyes fixed on the ground, wondering about life, real life, because this is what it cannot be just this. This poet, Iribarren, questions what real life is. Normal, ordinary people who go to work come back exhausted at the end of a day's work, their eyes fixed on the ground, wondering about what real life is. It is the poet that is able to read the hearts of those people. And the thing that strikes me is how they know that life cannot be just this. This is what they see. It is not because, and we're not saying that these people were once rich, once wealthy, and then used to other standards. You can also have never been in a condition of ultra privilege, but you feel that life cannot be just about this. You feel something missing. What voice cries out from within me this need? Okay, we could admit, so life is not just about that. We can say that real life is something else. But if we try to do this, whether on the metro or not, if we start to ask ourselves, what is life, real life? Start asking yourself this question until you're able to put all the small parts of this answer together and see where it takes you. Someone who works and conceives themselves as a slave and who doesn't understand the difference between life and this real life that we feel called to. Maybe I could recall other episodes that are even much simpler. I'm a university professor, and a while ago, I used to see a student at the end of the lecture hall and visibly uninterested in what I was explaining. And when a professor sees someone like this, you don't feel particularly, you don't have warm feelings towards that person. I was in my professor office. I was in my office, and during the office hours, this student knocks on the door and says, "Normally I don't speak to professors, but I particularly dislike you. And CL, I don't really like it either. So why are you here?" Well, since Christmas, I've been struggling quite a bit. I've been given a lot of advice, but none of this advice seems to help me. And I realized that during the lectures, I realized that I felt like I was being helped. And I said, "Oh, wow. I understood that day. Thank God for what happened to you today, because you realized something that is so true that it surpassed and overwhelmed all of your prejudice. You were so attracted to truth and let yourself be led by truth, because it wasn't me, it was truth that led you to your experience. Even if you dislike me, that doesn't matter. But you will never be able, nobody can take away the evidence that you experienced, the emerging of a truth that was so correspondent that it called out your responsibility. So he came back and we became friends after a while, and he's a very intelligent, he thinks I'm very intelligent now, of course. I don't know if I helped him, but that episode helped me a lot. Because truth is powerful. In a society like ours, which denies
Ma se emerge la verità riconosciuta e giudicata,
what truth is. But if I experience truth,
come soggetti per tutto.
we are reborn
Questo,
as
studente adesso
people.
molto bravo, ma potremmo trovare degli esempi, faccio solo uno.
I'll give another example. Wait, first I would like to ask you one more question. We want to understand, we've understood the method that Father Giussani approaches the religious sense. What is the starting point that Father Giussani indicates for looking at one's religious sense? Let's go into this straight away, because there are a lot of layers that you talked about. So where do we start from? Okay, I'll leave the example. There was one more thing I want to say, and then I'll go back to the question. The other side of these criteria is that in their application we can make mistakes, and this often happens. Giussani often makes this example of a businessman who goes off with the secretary. Nobody betrays in name of betrayal, Giussani says. You betray someone or something in name of an idea of what your happiness is. So the application of these criteria can be mistaken. Think about the need for justice. I don't think that there is a stronger need within the heart of a person than the need for justice. If somebody is treated unjustly, the world can be turned upside down. But let's look at it from the other point of view. We all know what it means. We all know what it means to not treat or to not act justly. Even if I have a situation whereby I want to treat a situation with justice, I realize that with my own hands, it is still insufficient. I cannot bear to live in injustice, because injustice is terrible. So since I have the criteria of justice as a need of the heart, every attempt for justice is right. Through experience, we can understand that every attempt at justice can be compared with an even greater justice. And this need for justice will constantly correct my attempts, because the criteria, the immanent criteria not given by me, resides within me, but I cannot control it. Let's see where Don Giussani starts. Let's go back to the question on the starting point. He says, the proposal is to start from oneself. It is a very strong criteria. How many very powerful points Giussani makes. What does it mean to start from our person in a context like ours?
Lui dice si parte bene da sé quando si parte dalla propria persona che si
We
guarda in
start
azione.
from ourselves when we look at our person in action, when we see ourselves in action.
Lui suggerisce un criterio di metodo molto
He
interessante.
suggests a
Come mi
very
posso
interesting
accorgere da dove si
criteria
comincia?
to start from.
Identificare la struttura della reazione
Identify the
che ognuno di noi
structure
ha
of the
davanti alla
reaction each one of us has when facing reality. It's not introspection or isolation. It is to identify the structure of my reaction. Reality is a question of psychological well-being. So, but you are able to see yourself in action, in your relationship with people, in your job, in your being involved with every aspect of life. You get a feedback. You get feedback and observe reality as an inexhaustible source of your understanding of life. It is life that provokes us. And through this, the whole dynamism of growth in life can be triggered. So the next question is connected to this because sometimes we feel upon ourselves a heart that has fallen asleep. So how can we reawaken our dormant hearts? Archbishop Bergoglio, the then Archbishop Bergoglio, writes, "You cannot start a discussion on God without first blowing away the ashes, suffocating the burning embers of our fundamental questions." Talking with a colleague who was dissatisfied with his life, what emerges is a dissatisfaction that is born from a lack of being involved in reality and with settling in reality with respect to those criteria. In order to share and to communicate our experience, this is a very radical question. So how can we reawaken those criteria? I'd like to go back to that very famous page of Don Giussani. What is the structure of the reaction that reality makes emerge within me? And he gives a very important example. If we were able to be born today with the awareness that we have today and see things for the first time, what would prevail? We would be filled with wonder. The example is very deep, and we can all recognize ourselves as normal people, or as ordinary people. We can understand that we would all have this moved feeling, a feeling of wonder. I remember a book that compared the reactions of Russian and American astronauts who had just come back from space. And the thing that emerged very clearly was that leaving the spaceship, the astronaut said, "I was taken by a very strange sense of happiness. It was amazing to hear the wind after months in a spaceship. After, another one said, I was so happy to see the earth covered with the very first layer of slight snow, and I had a great desire to put my cheek, to lay my cheek on it. Who would be able to describe and have this wonder for this small, low layer of snow? It is sufficient to get that gaze, that original gaze that makes you want to put your cheek on the snow.
La terra mi fa stare di buon umore, ma legge tutta questa esperienza si può moltiplicare in tanti altri esempi come un indizio,
describes this experience as a sign of the depth of reality. The journey in reality that puts us on a journey towards wonder. I cannot define what is in front of me, but it reawakens a wonder within me. Is this just an image? Giussani talks about wonder as a door, to indicate, not to reassure us, but to indicate to us the only thing that is important, that reality is good. Not only does it look and appear to me as good, but it is good. So your colleague and I, we can all be asleep, but we are also able to be reawoken in our wonder. And this is also connected to what you were saying before, that Father Giussani, when he describes and develops this point, he says, keep going into this experience, and you will realize that at the origin of you, there is something, there is something at the bottom of your eye which makes you say you. The road towards God is more existentially, realistically understood when whoever listens to the Christian announcement. Don Giussani commented on the Sevillanas de la Dios, a Spanish song. The boat becomes smaller the more it goes into the distance. The little boat recedes is like a sign of a vanishing point on the horizon. And Christianity is like this little boat which starts to come towards you. I know, like a man in the boat arriving at the dock, and the man gets out of the boat and embraces me. Who can understand this sentence without trembling? The mystery has been made man. And this mystery that you don't know the name of and does not say your name, but it is a man who gets out of the boat and embraces you. If we don't go through this entirely, The most holy words of our life, of our faith, can completely slip through our hands and we don't understand them. And this is truly the door to be able to understand for those of us who are really want to get serious answers about life and see.
So some things may amaze us. We still have a few minutes. I'll go fast, but since we're talking about wonder, the next question goes back to what another colleague asked me. I have many colleagues. So I was keeping this book in my bag, and a curious colleague saw it, took it, and he looked at the cover, he read the text, and he read, "Living reality intensely." And he said, "What does it mean to live reality intensely? What does one do?" And I said, "I will ask Frades." But Father Giussani says the formula of the itinerary to the ultimate meaning of life. This is what it means to live reality intensely. Well, I leave this question open to everyone. Really, I'm serious. It's not that on this side of the stage there are the actors and there's the audience. There's no such difference today. You're here maybe by chance today, but you're here. You're not simply spectators. I will leave this question open. What does it mean to live reality intensely? Who of the people I know can I say that person really relates to this text, to this quote? Who does really live reality intensely? According to the commercials we see, living reality intensely means, but this is not enough. Listening to different songs, I want it all. That is intense, isn't it? I want it all and I want it now. Does that mean living reality intensely? No, something even more beautiful. Where can I meet someone whose life reawakens the intensity of my reality as an itinerary to the ultimate meaning of my life, the second part of the phrase that we should not forget, so that we can all judge the meaning of living reality intensely, and we can do it in many ways. Father Giussani says that it means that it is an itinerary to the ultimate meaning of life. I can think of many people, many places where I can live reality intensely to go towards my destiny. Another question, because I would like to understand why is it interesting to delve into the religious sense, even for those people who think they have already found an answer. Why isn't it a step back working on this text? A beautiful question. Well, Father Giussani once said, we have written the religious sense. Well, not us. He wrote it, but with we, I mean as Christians, as Catholics, the people who met Jesus Christ, and thanks to this encounter, retrieved the humanity according to the richness, the precision described in this book. So, I remember what Father Julian Carron said many times. The religious sense as a verification of the Christian faith. This is what we want to do now. How can we convey our passion for our faith if when I say that the Word became flesh, I forget about everything that had come before.
Stiamo insieme o vengo io da te, se la mia fede è come retroalimentata, tenuta e mossa da questa intelligenza
is nourished by this reason of humanity that comes from my faith. So this kind of proposal is nothing mechanical, is not automatic, but it enables us to avoid formalism in the way we live our faith.
Profondo, esistenziale fra ognuna delle proposte che ci fa il cristianesimo, che
it helps us
Signore che abbiamo incontrato,
obey to the proposals that are made to us, and without forgetting about our humanity.
Non riesce a trovare quello per cui si muove, di solito decade, no, è stata un po' la storia, decade in particolari che prendono
Sometimes
il posto
when we don't
della
find
totalità.
an answer that we like, we start focusing only on small things, but without a wider meaning, we cannot really live.
Vicino, reso carne, lo tradurrò.
Because if I do not find a meaning that is made flesh, I will translate it according to my imagination. But the only one who enables us to complete the circle of our existence is Christ. Without Christ, we are tempted to close the image we have in us, but it will be a false image. Well, this book offers us the chance to work on this proposal, the proposal of a religious sense for everyone. Yes, something very beautiful that was said by Davide, by you as well. In his foreword, Cardinal Bergoglio says, this is a book for everyone. A book that it is a masterpiece by itself, but it is not enough. Because this is not the way this book was born. It was born in a very particular way. This book aims at being the tool for our educational path, to delve into the Christian experience that we've met, and that we can understand better thanks to this book. This is not a self-help book, as we usually say. It is not what it is. This book is an educational proposal that is part of a journey, of a longer journey, that cannot be interesting if it doesn't reach you through some kind of reality that amazes you, that pushes you, that makes you move. And this is how this book becomes important for our lives. Pope Francis in October asked us to take this work seriously. I think that one of the most beautiful things of our educational journey that we share is this integral experience, this whole experience, being part of a journey that looks at humanity in this way. This kind of life, this kind of reality really enables us to face the challenges we've mentioned in the right way, our everyday challenges, the challenges mentioned by Pope Francis when he says a change of epoch. This is why this book is an extremely valuable educational tool that should be proposed to everyone because it is convenient for us. I would like to call back Davide Prosperi for the conclusions. Thank you very much to all of you.
Ecco, allora
Well, I would like to conclude this meeting by focusing on what Javier Prades has just said. This is not simply a presentation of a book, it is a proposal that we make tonight. The proposal of the start of something, the start of a work. So, just a brief remark of what we as Communion and Liberation usually call School of Community, the content of this work. What we call School of Community is a weekly or fortnightly gesture, usually led by one of the local leaders of the movement, that aims at delving into the contents of the text through the close comparison between Father Giussani's book and our own experience. It is a dialogue, and as we said in the beginning, it is open to all. You do not need to be part of the movement. You are not required to be a Christian. You just need to be open to listening and be willing to delve into your own humanity. This gesture was born from the educational passion of Father Giussani, who spent his whole life educating young people and even not so young people, teaching them how to look at reality seriously. So I would like to quote Father Giussani when he talks about the purpose of the work of School of Community. School of Community is, first of all, a work. It is a work that builds. It is the human phenomenon whereby, by shaping the created reality that is around us, something organic, hospitable, useful, peaceful, human is erected. But I was wondering, why School of Community? Why did we create the School of Community many years ago? Life has a purpose, and the fact that there are so many problems pressing into our daily lives is precisely the confirmation that our life has a purpose, because without a purpose we would have no issues, no problems. So by establishing the School of Community, we decided that all our problems deserve an answer, an adequate answer. An answer to a problem is the constituent reason for that problem. This gives life curiosity and flavor. Solving a problem of our life gives curiosity and taste to our lives. And this was the discovery of the first lessons of religion that I did. I realized that faith is able to answer to our human problems even more than reason. This is why we loved it, this faith, because it turned out to be more fascinating than the greatness of our thoughts as men, and even more welcoming than a generous heart can be. So, the religious sense, the book we've just presented, is the first book of a trilogy written by Father Giussani that he proposed to the people he met. After this, there are At the Origin of the Christian Claim and Why the Church, about the second one about the encounter with Christ, historically and existentially, and then how this event remains in history thanks to the human companionship of the Church, the second, which is the third one of the trilogy, Why the Church. So, the Religious Sense is the first book of this trilogy. And this trilogy was defined by Father Giussani as a journey, some kind of course. Father Giussani referred to the value of School of Community many times, especially the work on the religious sense. He said, before we started working on the religious sense,
una cosa mi permettevo di desiderare che accadesse alla fine del lavoro, che avessimo percepito almeno
I realized that I wanted us to understand that we all depend on something bigger than us, bigger not in the sense of physically bigger, but bigger than our reason, than something we could imagine.
Citando un grande teologo protestante, la nostra ragione
our
non
reason
ci arriva.
Cannot understand everything. We cannot compare to God. We are nothing in front of Him compared to Him.
Il primo è che il Dio di cui
the
ci ha
God
parlato Cristo,
Christ
che ci ha rivelato Cristo,
revealed to us and talked about, because He is the only one who saw Him, is a mystery. This God is a mystery that enters our history.
Questo è l'insopportabile dalla cultura umana di tutti i tempi, fino all'idea, all'intuizione che la realtà dipende da
something that makes us understand that reality depends on something else. Even Voltaire understood it, and as well as many other Christian personalities. This mystery is related to our history. God became a historical figure. This is not always accepted because it is not easily conceivable. The mystery is not simply conceivable by us. It is not simply to understand that the mystery can actually be part of our misery, even when we feel tired during the evening, when we go through lives, our lives distracted, when we do bad things. Even in those moments, God is there. The mystery became part of history. And another time he said, Giussani said, today's man man has never been a slave more than he is today. Man becomes a slave when he forgets that he totally depends on someone else. I attracted you to me, God says. Christ said before going to die, without me you can do nothing. We need to remember this. And this is reactivated by the awareness that we do not exist because we deserve it, because we are able to give ourselves life. We exist because of someone else. We need to be aware that we were created, we were chosen to live, to be. There was no reason for me to exist rather than others. The Bible starts from the primal awareness of this total dependence. So here lies the fundamental meaning of the work of the School of Community on the religious sense. We are very busy in our days, and many times we react without thinking, reacting to external stimuli. But this is precisely why we need moments for ourselves to look at our I, as we have said. Without this, we would end up losing. We would end up neglecting the real meaning of life. I think that this work is a way to retrieve a really free relationship with our lives, our work, our family, our children, our loved ones' passions, even our sickness, solitude, our pain, our joy, everything can be meaningful if it aims at finding a meaning. So Father Giussani says, I hope you can all see how every problem can be faced with solutions suggested and corrected by your faith. Just like when you get up, the sun hasn't come out and you can see nothing but the stars. You may see some shapes, the shapes of houses, trees, hills, and then at a certain point something happens, something that may seem normal, that does not derive from twilight, but twilight derives from it, the phenomenon of the sun rising. Then the houses, the trees, and the hills become more defined according to their true nature, their true form. And within those shapes, man starts acting in a more secure way. So I hope the School of Community is for you the sun rising from the twilight. So we invite all of you to do this work together without wanting necessarily to change the world, but starting with from changing ourselves. You can ask information to the people who have invited you tonight or writing to info@clonline.org. Thank you very much to all of you, especially to Father Prades and Irene Elisei. Thank you very much.